Hello and welcome to another My Journey live stream. If you don't know me, I'm Colin McDonald. I've been in the games industry for a couple of decades now, I think about 30 years, right from working on home computers in my mum's bedroom, basically, my bedroom at home, to being producer on early Grand Theft Auto games, working on ports of games like Prince of Persia, been at Channel 4 doing iconic games like Made in Chelsea, if you're a fan of that show. And now, as well as other things, I'm doing these Games Jobs Live events, which are recruitment events for the games industry. If you've not joined any of our events before, the events are regional, they run around the country, and they're all about putting studios up on a live stream, getting them in front of everyone, telling them who they are, what positions they've got, and then we get everyone chatting in a Discord and hopefully get as many people into new jobs in the games industry as possible. We've got a bunch of events coming up. We've got our next one covers the whole of the north of England. That's on April the 7th. And then on April the 14th, we've got one that covers the Midlands. And then on April the 21st, we're partnered with Pocket Gamer Connects, where we're doing one that has a wider array of companies covering a bigger geographic area. So if you want to have a look at any of those events, they're all free to sign up and attend. All the sign-ups are on our website, which is www.gamesjobs.live. That's www.gamesjobs.live. Do have a look and come along to all that you fancy. On that same website, you will also find an interactive jobs map, which has all the current jobs across the whole of the UK that we're aware of. So have a look, browse around your area, filter by discipline, whatever you want, and find jobs that you want to apply for. Also on our website, you'll find a sign up for our newsletter to keep up to date with everything that we're doing. We also do game jams, which is usually the first bit of advice given to people in terms of trying to get that experience that you need to get into the industry for the first time. So our next game jam is in July. Find out more at jam.gamesjobs.live, and feel free to come along to participate in that, or even just to play the games and join the fun. There'll be various live streams, etc. for those. If you like what we do, all that stuff goes out on this YouTube channel, so please do like and subscribe. Tell friends, colleagues, parents, kids, whatever. The more people we get coming to these events, the more companies we can attract to them, and the better it is for everyone. Today, however, we are continuing with our My Journey series of live streams, chatting with different games industry veterans about their journey into and through the games industry. Next week, we'll have Technical Director Lizzie Atwood. So do make sure you catch that. We're going back to Wednesday next week. So Technical Director Lizzie Atwood is next Wednesday, the 31st of March at 4 p.m. However, today, we have someone that I've known for quite a long time. We might get into that as we chat. We have narrative designer Graham Goring. And one of the best bits about doing these My Journey live streams is that I ask all our guests to write their own script to tell us a bit about them. And as you would expect from a narrative designer, Graham's script that he sent me isn't just your usual 50-word self-promotional bio. Graham Goring is a chancer who has skanked his way into every meaningful job that he has ever held. After swindling his way into the games industry as a pixel artist in April 2000, he spent the next 17 years variously failing upwards or sideways until he landed a plum job as a narrative designer, a title so bereft of concrete meaning as to allow him alarming amounts of latitude while working on the Lego games. Then he quit the industry so that he could pursue his passion project of gradually bankrupting his family. Lots to unpick there. Please do put your questions for Graham into the YouTube chat, and I'll try to ask as many as we can. But let's get on and bring in Mr. Graham Goring. Graham.
Hello. I didn't forget I was doing this.
It's not last minute at all, is it? I mean, we've been preparing this for hours.
I don't like the idea that I'm a veteran. I mean I mean, I feel like I have been through wars, yes,
That's all it takes.
okay, no, fair enough, because
you've been through the wars and you're still standing. I think those are the two conditions.
Technically sitting, but yes, much as like yourself. Yeah, hello, Colin. It's been a while.
It has indeed.
Yeah.
So we'll maybe get back to how we know each other from back in the day. But what seems to work quite well with these is we kind of start at the beginning and find out what people are doing just now or most recently, so that we can kind of see the end result, and then we'll basically rewind all the way back to the start and find out about how people first got into the industry. So in terms of right now, other than this interview, generally speaking, right now, what are you up to? What do you do?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, I quit my job so I can make my passion project, which is what I am nominally doing. But I'm also doing a whole bunch of freelance work for various companies. I've been doing some stuff for Frontier. Recently, did the Planet Zoo, and did some stuff for the Planet Coaster console edition, and other things for them, and for various other companies. There's actually a game being announced tomorrow that I've done a bit of work on, which is exciting. So I'm going to be watching the Xbox presentation with a lot of interest. Yeah, really, it's doing whatever I can to keep the family afloat. Yeah, to sort of justify the fact that I spend all this time in my office.
Just like the rest of us. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're doing okay then. If you've got projects getting announced on the Xbox live stream and working with Frontier, very prestigious.
Yeah, no, I've been very lucky. It's all thanks to nice people like Andrew Walsh who put my name forward for the Frontier stuff, and developed a lovely working relationship with them, yeah, it's all this company, this business. I find this is going to be terrible advice for getting into it. Hit that remit. I have always managed to get into things through who I know as opposed to what I know, because when I started, I didn't know diddly squat. Can we swear on this?
I don't think you did, but
No. What I'm saying is, I would have said I didn't know Jack Poop. I wouldn't have said poop though. I would have said a different word, a word that my 3-year-old son knows.
Yeah, let's keep it family friendly.
No, let's keep it family friendly. Let's do that. I mean, someone's going to slip out.
Because I think my mom's watching this. I mean, she's probably not, but she could be.
She could be. I know she is a big fan of. I mean, she wants to get into the industry herself. That's what I hear. And so these are really valuable.
Indeed. So, a narrative designer is that what you're doing on these contracts and this passion project?
So on the contracts, really, I mean, yeah. So narrative designer is a kind of a catch-all term, and it can mean sort of dog's body writing grunts, just like, oh, look out, more enemies. There are some enemies. Here come some enemies. That stuff, which is the worst stuff to write. Or it could mean that you're doing the story from the ground up. On some things, I was kind of involved near the early in helping shape the sort of the overall worlds, but generally the way I pitch myself is that I can write dumb jokes and dialogue to a degree that maybe not a million monkeys with typewriters, but like 750,000. So that's kind of what I do. I'm generally sort of brought on to do that, where they need sort of a lot of stuff written, and they don't have the sort of the resource to do that themselves, and so they contract out. Or if it's something that is particularly sort of comedy related, which is sort of the field I find myself in, then sometimes I'm sought out for that reason.
So are you a specialist in comedic narrative designing then?
Yeah, well, so I used to do stand-up basically, but and so that's kind of what I found myself writing, because it's what I have an ear for, It's what I enjoy writing. It's what I think I'm fairly good at writing. So yeah, but on my own project, it's not just narrative design. I'm doing everything: design, programming, not the graphics, obviously, or the sound, because it would then look and sound terrible. Whereas because I'm doing programming, it's merely going to play terribly. But yeah, and all the writing, obviously, as well. But yeah, so that's it. That's narrative design. It's all kinds of stuff.
And then, I mean, it's obviously interesting that you've been both an employee, like a regular employee in that sort of role, and now self-employed or running your own studio, however you want to describe it, as well as look on the contract side of things. I mean, what are most people working in this sort of field? Are they full-time? Are they contractors? Are they doing their own thing? What's your sense of that?
Do you know what? I mean, a lot of companies do have like narrative designers now. It's become something that's more of a known quantity. I mean, when I started doing it at TT Games, none of the games had dialogue in before, so we had no idea what we were doing really, and so thus the alarming amounts of latitude. But I know loads of freelance ones as well. So I think with small companies, it's kind of like to have someone who's literally just there to do that's like a really ridiculous kind of expense. So unless one of the people happens to be a writer as well, I think it makes a lot of sense for smaller companies to contract that out. But yeah, large companies, they're hundreds of us buggers. Really,
you grow on trees.
The proverbial monkeys with typewriters.
And then you kind of alluded to earlier in terms of the who you know. I mean, with I think it's just a reality of any kind of business where it's about someone's looking for someone with a certain set of skills. They're going to write, who have we heard of? Who in the team has heard? Who can recommend someone else? I mean, presumably, if you were to start off in this industry, you would have no chance. And it's not about the experience per se. It's that well, nobody can vouch for me, and I don't know anyone. I don't know who's got these positions. Is that fair?
I think so. That's why I think a lot of people recommend going the route of writing interactive fiction, because it kind of using things like Inkle and stuff like that to demonstrate the ability to do branching dialogue and stuff like that. But equally, being able to write a sheet of barks to show that is useful, I think. But in an ideal world, make your own game and use that as you're in. Like you're saying about in the introduction regarding game jams is an excellent way to get in. I know so many people who effectively run their own company now and got into it via game jams. It's the tools that are available now have been so incredible in democratizing this industry.
Have you taken part in many game jams?
In a very no. Yeah, okay. Look, I have been present at game jams and I've used it as whether like in Mad Lab in Manchester, they used to run some game jams, and I'd go there and it means I'm going to get a solid 8 hours of work on my own project done because I won't have the other distractions, and I'll see all these other busy people and I'll feel more guilty than I usually would if I was just browsing the internet and just going down a YouTube rabbit hole. So I have been game jam adjacent is how I would describe myself. But yeah,
you've been inspired by the game jams, just not in the way most people usually are.
Yeah, not in the manner which the game jam would want. I would say I just used up resources. I'm just sucking down oxygen.
Aren't we all? So let's go back to the beginning then, and I'm always curious, when is the first point it kind of dawned on you, or you thought, oh, I might get into the games industry, or I might like to get into the games industry?
I mean, obviously, like any nerd who was a child in the 80s, I had a Spectrum. Commodores are terrible. Let's ignite that. And obviously, as you know, eventually I got a Sam Coupe, and I contributed to Fred magazine, the austere publication for which you were the sort of the grand high poobah. and so that was really good, because that was kind of like, producing stuff and seeing it published, and that gives you a taste for it. But then, so I was always doing it as a hobby anyway, and it's, if you can, what's that thing they say? If you can make a hobby a job, you'll never work a day in your life. So I kind of fell into it, though, in that I was just, and this is how I think all children should do this. I was talking to a stranger on the internet. It was, and John Pickford, actually, the guy from Software Creations, who made Zub and Feud and all these amazing games in the past. And I was chatting with him on CompSys Sinclair, which was a Usenet forum, which shows you how long ago this was. And he basically just invited me up for a job interview, and that's kind of how I got in. And so I stumbled into it. I'd made a New Year's resolution that year that I wanted to get out of my existing job, and then I got this invite, and I was one day over. So yeah, that's how I got into it, by talking to a person on the internet, and then getting on a train and trusting they wouldn't bundle me into a white van and sell me into slavery.
No, that happens next year, I think. You've still got that to come. But
something to look forward to.
Yeah, indeed. Well, nothing else happens this year. So I mean, when you started that conversation with John, were you just casually chatting? Was it? Were you networking, trying to get a job, or what was?
No, not at all. Just because he would post on CompSys Sinclair, because obviously he produced all these Spectrum games, and I'll be chatting about them and doing this, and also posting pictures of like pixel art that I had done. And they happened to need one, and they were like, "Do you want to come up for an interview?" And I was like, "Yeah." When I say I skanked my way into every opportunity I ever had, it is no exaggeration. It is the least useful, non-replicable way into the industry you could imagine, which is why I'm a terrible guest for this. Other than, of course, my charming personality.
Well, let's not dwell on that. But I mean, to me, actually, it is a very replicable way in, because you basically networked your way in.
I did, yes. I did it I did it in a non-thirsty way, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's in that same way that sometimes you don't know if someone's flirting with you. Effectively, that's kind of what I accidentally flirted my way into the industry. Yeah, that seems like an analogy that works. What the hell? Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, chatting sort of and engaging with people on forums in a respectful manner. I mean, that's the thing, in a respectful manner. But obviously, the internet doesn't exactly encourage that, I want to say. I guess you had to use your real name. That helps. If they can trace you down and give you a shoeing, then you're more likely to be nice.
Yep. And then when you were chatting, was there any connection to the stuff you'd done before on the Sam Coope? And probably, I mean, most people have probably never heard of the Sam. So this was an 8-bit computer that came out in the 1990, 89,
yeah,
90,
yeah,
something
89.
like that.
I think the original copyright message was 89. I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So we did a lot of stuff in our own respective lives back then. But the stuff you did then, I mean, that was, it was kind of hobbyist for both of us.
Yeah.
Did that in any way lead on to that conversation with John Pickford and that job, or is it completely separate, do you think?
I think he'd probably seen some screenshots of stuff I'd done, and I was, and I knew that I was a hobbyist and an all-rounder, which is, as a small company, hiring an all-rounder is incredibly valuable. He at the time, I know large companies, they tend to be ridiculously specialized, but smaller companies, if you can wear 3 different hats, that and to a degree of competence, that's incredibly valuable. And so we knew that I was a keen person who would could also do a little bit of programming and a bit of this, and as it was, the graphics they were looking to do were Game Boy Color graphics, which are pretty close to Spectrum in terms of levels of color and stuff like that. So I guess we had gotten on well. We've been chatting for probably a couple of years actually. So I seems like a not inobvious punt to take.
And do you think, I mean, would that, I mean, obviously you came into art and then sort of transitioned across to design essentially, but
Yeah.
is there any reason why that approach wouldn't work? Because, design, narrative design is a
No,
much more common role now. It might not have been as common back then, but.
I think no. I mean, transitioning between skills it still absolutely applies. I know plenty of people who went from like QA to narrative design, just because if you make people know that you're interested in something, they'll take a punt on you. But it's easier than hiring someone from outside. And if you're on them low QA wages, it won't cost them a damn dime either. So and this industry it likes to make millions and save even more if it can. No, I see people changing disciplines all the time. People become designers and they become producers and then maybe they become designers again. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've changed role many times. Before ending up at narrative design. So yeah, thank God you can do that. I was just lucky that I was allowed to fail my way through it without being fired. So
I mean, you're obviously doing yourself down there because you got a huge number of successes to your past. But I mean, like all of us in the games industry, there's a lot of failures in there. I mean, what do you mean by the failures? I mean, tell us a bit more about that.
Okay, well, I mean, I started as a pixel artist, but then soon enough that wasn't really a thing that was needed because everything was going 3D. So I tried doing a bit of 3D art, bit of 3D animation, bit of 3D art. yeah, not so good at that. But I was really fortunate. I was like I say, at Z2, an incredibly nurturing, wonderful company to work for, and they could see that I had a passion for games, and so a project came in called Nicktoons Snapshot, a game which never came out, and they needed design resource on that, and so I was basically made lead designer on that. I basically went from failed 3D artist to lead designer on this project, and it was a poison chalice. It was the worst thing I've ever worked on. It was horrible and incredibly stressful, and it gave me IBS. But it was a hell of a learning opportunity. I'll say that. I mean, everything I've done, even if I've not been great at it, I've learned from it. And then that project fortunately got canned, and I left the industry for 9 months. And then as I say, someone I had previously worked with was like, "We need a designer at this company. Do you want to come up?" And I was like, "All right, as long as I can go home at the weekends," because it was in Manchester and I lived in the Midlands, and they were like, "Yeah, what the heck." That's and then I stuck with design for quite some time until sort of, as I say, again by luck and happenstance, transitioning into narrative design. But yeah, it's always been the company needed something, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." Being willing to put yourself forward for those things, and take a chance. Again, it's why it's really important to have I think a grounding in everything, because if you have a grounding in programming, then you can look at a design thing and go, "Well, that ain't flying," and be able to nip that stuff in the bud, or find a way to perhaps honor a request from a publisher for a feature in a way that doesn't cause massive rescoping of a project, but ticks the box.
And how? I mean, again, people will get bored of me banging on about game jams, but to me, game jams are one of the obvious ways to get that grounding across different disciplines. Yeah. Is there other ways you would recommend, or better ways, or?
I mean, I was fortunate. Effectively, I was doing a game jam in the industry in some ways, because the projects were pretty short back then, and. But no, I really do think game jams are incredible. We just didn't have them back then, really. There was, Ludum Dare was but a twinkle in Mike Kasperzak's eye. It was. I imagine the closest we had those like demo parties and stuff like that, which I never went to because that seemed for the cool kids. And also, I owned a Sam Coupe, which is the most deeply uncool computer it's possible to own. I think it's fair to say I don't think anyone who actually bought one of those didn't have their V card at the time. I think that's a fair statement. Yeah. So yeah, no, it was just that it wasn't a thing back then.
No, yeah. So there's actually I'll bring it up because this question of jumping between, particularly when people come into the industry, they don't know if they want to commit to a particular thing. So a lot of folk are curious about jumping, between different disciplines or specializing. Once they come into one discipline, so is there a flip side about it making, it looks like you're unfocused?
I think if you're changing company, possibly, but I mean, if you're going to stay at a company for a decent amount of time, here's the thing: I stayed at companies quite a long time. I was at Z2 for 4 years, and then they were bought, and I sort of stayed on at the next company for about a year, and then I was at my next job for about 5 years, and then I was at TT for 8 years, and then I quit and went solo. If you're planning on jumping between places, yes, I can imagine it could have that, but I never had cause to write a CV. Simple as, in my case, because it was always I had established relationships with people, and I don't think it can be overstated just how important it is to be a nice person who people like. People will hire someone that they like who can do the job well over someone who's a technical genius and a pain in the bum every time. If they have any sense, they will do it every time, because company dynamics are incredibly important, especially if you're going to be working your ass off doing crunch and stuff like that. You don't want to be working with horrible people. So I don't think it can be overstated how important it is to be a personable person who gets on well with people, and you will be thought of for jobs.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. It doesn't come up often enough. They always say in business, people buy from people they like. But I think you make a really good point. That it's exactly the same with hiring. People hire people they like, the people that they want to work with.
And this is an industry who will possibly not legally happily tell you who the bad people are. And even more now. Thank God, real rotters are being outed as real rotters, but people who are just a pain in the arse to work with, you can't officially do that, but that information will get out there, I think.
Well, and particularly in regions, obviously my background's mostly in Dundee, so yes. if somebody did something untoward, and I probably can't go into examples, but there would be things where someone did something quite inappropriate. Yeah. And word would just go round, and it was then everyone was wary of hiring that person because they'd done something really, really, stupid that they shouldn't have. Yeah. And of course, you want to, your colleagues that you worked with a couple of years ago are probably running the company that's the next street over now.
Yeah.
So it's
Everyone
a small industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole, be careful, on the way up, because you'll see them again on the way down.
So that first job, sorry, I've forgotten where you said you started at Z2.
Yeah, pixel artist.
Yeah.
And then we got bought by Warthog, and then Warthog had a round of layoffs, and so I left the industry for 9 months, and I went back to working on the phones at Sitel, midnight to late. That ruined me. And then I got a call from my good friend Amma Latif, who said they need a designer at I'm going to call them Bluebeck, but they changed their name every 5 minutes. They were Bluebeck, they were Connected Media, they were Informer, and they were Hands-On Media. I do not know. I can say they were Connected Media first. After that, it gets very blurry.
Not sure.
And we made games for mobile phones, which is great because you have really short turnaround, and you can try really weird things. Like we got the license for the Omen. And my boss genuinely pitched sort of Tamagotchi, but with Damien from The Omen. And the man from Fox looked at him with daggers in his eyes. And I think he realized at that point, we have chanced our arm too far. So it was great, though, because it means I have a credit on Call of Duty too. However, it's It's a really rubbish J2ME version of Call of Duty 2 that runs on a screen about that size. But technically, if you look at Moby Games, Call of Duty 2, didn't think he worked on that. Didn't really.
It's on your CV. That's what's important.
It's on my CV. It's not in pride of place, but it's on there.
Yeah. Okay. So that phone call you got, I mean, was that someone that had been a colleague previously, or was that someone external you'd interacted with?
Amal was at Z2, so I had known him, and he was he's a really nice guy, and he was the person who took me aside one day and said, "Graham, you stink," and I needed to hear that because I wasn't showering often enough. That's an important thing. Shower. If you're going to be in the industry, shower, because you're going to be working in very close places. It shouldn't need saying, but I've met some smelly people in the industry. And there's your takeaway top tip from today. So I'd worked with him for 4 years previously, and then he went over to Warthog as well. And everyone at Z2 really, really got on, apart from a couple. And so he had no hesitation. He'd seen what I was like up until then, so they needed someone, and it was, why not give him a call? I know he's free. He's certainly not got anything better to do.
And that's been the same sort of thing through the other jumps. It's been someone that you've worked with, like been a teammate with almost.
Yeah. So basically, I went to that company where I met a guy called Mark Werrett, who's a lovely guy who's at Clever Beans now, and then he moved over to TT Fusion, and they were looking for people, and he basically put my name forward. He mentioned it to Mike Taylor, who's sadly passed on now, but he was the head of design, and so he said, "Do you want to come over for an interview?" And he was honestly, I'm reticent to hire you because I hear you don't like doing overtime, and that is very true. I do not. At Z2, I did, I would say, 20 hours overtime in 4 years, but then everyone did because it was a company that was well run. But then he hired me anyway, and made me sort of co-lead designer on a project. And then that was the last company I was at. I was only ever at like 4 companies, 3.5 really.
And your own company will be
that's true. Yeah, yes, I suppose I don't count it. Just, I mean, it's registered as a company, but I don't think of it as that way. Mainly because I'm so distracted by doing writing for other people at the moment, which is a lovely position to be in. And I am very grateful to all of you for hiring me. Thank you.
And apologies if Graham's next milestone is an hour late after doing this.
No, I finished it at 3:30. Thank God.
Oh well, we are grateful. Otherwise, there might not have been a live stream, but we could have sort of live streamed watching you work.
Yeah, I mean, you don't understand that. I mean, if you want it to be clean.
Fantastic. Sorry, just jumping back through a couple of questions. Actually, one basic question here from Kieran. Sorry, I should have probably asked this earlier on.
Oh,
is a narrative designer a writer? Vice versa.
I would say yes. It's a Ponzi term for a writer. However, also you're going to be you may find yourself directing voice actors. You may find yourself dealing with all the sound data when it comes in and formatting it and getting to the right directories. It's pretty much taking everything from it can be coming up with the idea. It can be just, like I say, writing, but it can be taking everything from the word on the page to formatting it right as a screenplay so that the actors can read it, but also having it in a spreadsheet so that the sound engineers have got something useful. And then getting that data and wrangling it into the game. It can be taking it, from your brain into the game. It depends. In a larger company, you may well find that you are literally just, and then he said that. But in a smaller company, like I say, your ability to do much more than that will serve you in good stead. I literally was writing tools and coding all kinds of stuff to help get data from one place to the other. And you don't have to do that. I'm just saying that I did that. I was very much a full service operator in that respect. That sounds sexual.
It's why you can charge so much. So I mean,
These hands aren't just for writing.
well, so I mean, it's you said it varies by company, but I suspect it varies by the individual just as much. That you seem to have a very can-do attitude, that you've dabbled in a lot of things and you're willing to continue dabble. So you probably let it be known that you're open for doing, helping out with the sound design and directing actors and stuff.
If I can do something that makes my life easier, I will. I mean, look, the only reason I got into directing, genuinely true, was there was and this is very unprofessional for me to say this, but there was a voice session scheduled for 2:00 in America. However, what they neglected to take note of was that the actor was West Coast and they were using East Coast time, or the other way around. No, yeah, the actor was East Coast and they were on West Coast time. So the actor turned up 2 hours earlier than they were expecting. And they were like, the director's not here. Can you direct this? And I was like, all right, I haven't done that before, but I know the script. So I directed the actor, Michael J. Fox. And he was lovely, thank God. And got away with it. And then after that, they were like, we can save a bit of money if we use it for directing. So they got me directing, Max von Sydow and Lupita Nyong'o. It was like whoever it's a pain to schedule for because of the time zone they're in. What's that? They're in somewhere in Europe. Yeah, I get granted it. And so yeah, I got to direct, some amazing people. But I wouldn't say it's a can-do attitude so much as a will begrudgingly do attitude in some cases. But yeah, it's great. It's a really exciting thing to do, narrative design, because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. But it can be frustrating because sometimes you'll be writing. They say the first draft of everything is bad. To paraphrase, sometimes that's what you have to record. So you kind of have to get it right first time. You can be writing something on a Monday and recording it with a Hollywood A-lister on the Thursday. So timelines in video games and the nature that the scope of things changes constantly on projects. I mean, you have to be highly reactive and able to really roll with the punches.
So the one time I got roped into sort of directing a voice actor, I think it was the Tony the Tiger.
So how was the experience? Was it great?
And we got to the end and we finished early, and I think he was just looking, maybe got paid by the minute or something. And he was like, "Do you want a voicemail recorded or personalise your voicemail or something as a Tony the Tiger thing?" Have you managed to do that with these various Hollywood A-listers you've been working with?
Okay, we got the voice of GLaDOS to swear. I have a file somewhere on my machine which he's swearing. I don't quite recall why. But mostly it's when the sessions I haven't been there and they've been reading the script and I just get sent voice clips occasionally of them cussing out my writing. Like Will Arnett calling me very rude words because of the stuff I was making him say. No, there's the thing. Mostly they're really lovely people anyway. So it's just nice to have a chinwag with people who are heroes. I got to sit down with Anthony Daniels and just rewrite everything so it was more in C-3PO's voice. That was cool. I've still got his phone number. Should we prank call him? It's right here. It's great. It's a really fun thing. And yeah, it's quite informal as well. I think because it is so pure creative. It's not like programming. It's solving problems quite often. Whereas writing, although you are often solving problems by combing over poor bits of design, it's really creative and fulfilling. Except when you're writing the same thing over and over again, which is what I felt I was doing in the end, and why I was quite happy to try leaving the industry, or rather going it alone for a while.
So just, I mean, the voice actor directing. I mean, I didn't realize you'd done so much of it. I mean that's a profession in its own right. I mean, what skills? What are you actually doing there? I mean,
I am not good at it because I am always ready to give them a line reading, and most voice actors or actors hate getting line readings. However, quite often I want them to hit a particular joke, and because we're only recording their lines, we're not recording the other person's lines. I know which word they need to hit in order to make that joke work, and they don't like that. So I'm not a good director by any means, because I do not I can't really comprehend exactly what the craft of acting is. I just know how I want that line to sound, and there are some actors who are like, yeah, give me line reading, but most of them don't read that. You have to. So it's a difficult thing that I am not good at, and I only do it when it's kind of needed. It's not something I particularly enjoy, because it's also incredibly stressful. Unless if you're working with like a jobbing actor, it's a blast. It's wonderful. It is so much fun, because you don't have to worry that you've only got half an hour with Chris Pratt, and we're paying him a truck of money, and if you don't get it, you don't get it. That's really stressful. I didn't enjoy doing stuff like that particularly. But yeah, if you're working with sort of jobbing actors, and there's that more sort of jovial atmosphere, and they're really happy to be there, this isn't just some contractual obligation for them. Not that it was, I should say, with most Hollywood people. It's yeah, it can be either really stressful or really fun. But if they send out for food, it's always delicious, so that's nice. If you get to actually go to the studios, so I used to have these schnitzel wraps. They were so good.
See, that's all over now. Yeah. So jumping back to the narrative designer writer. So is a writer, if someone's applying for a job as a writer or is a writer, is that basically a more specialized one, because that's just about the writing? Narrative designer's broader.
I would say that you're talking about games writing as opposed to writing. If someone's coming from writing purely linear stuff, well, there's a lot more that goes into pure game writing, because, as I say, you have to be able to write sometimes every version of the scene based on all these different permutations of factors that are going into that scene due to the different bits of plot and what the player's done. And I think it also helps to be a games player, really, as well. Seems obvious, but because most of my writing, I always found that the best way to do the writing on a Lego project was to play the level when you have the luxury of it having been done beforehand. Play the level and think, what do I need to know, and what can I poke fun at, and then you write those lines, and that was the most fruitful way to do it. And that's why Lego City Undercover is still the best thing I ever worked on, because the nature and length of the project means that I had the luxury of doing that and doing loads of recording sessions with the actors. There's writing and there's games writing, and then there's narrative design probably as well. I know that, like, narrative design, I think officially it's a whole other bunch of things, and it's about finding a way to tell the story, not with perhaps dialogue, but with other things, mise en scène and all that. I just write funny lines. That's what I do.
Fair enough. In terms of promoting yourself, I mean, it sounds like you've been incredibly lucky that people have called you.
Yeah.
But there's a question come in, basically about how do you promote yourself? What's the best way to show off your working? I mean, do you just send a here's 500 pages of what I have written?
This is why I think having a game that you can show, or I mean, if you can, if it's something that you can, if you've worked on projects whereby you can kind of highlight it in a YouTube video, that's good, because obviously, video, that goes straight into my eyeballs. But honestly, it's because it's something I haven't particularly had to do, because I found my way, like I said, I found my way into narrative whilst I was in the industry. Someone high up at the company saw me doing stand-up, and was like, well, the writer we've got on this thing isn't working out. Why don't we just use Graham? He's cheaper. And that's how it happened. So I was very fortunate, because whenever I apply, whenever I had been asked to send examples of my writing, I've always picked choice bits that I really liked that I wrote, and a page of Barks. and I have never got a job that way. So because I got a job, so I don't know, kids, just apply. I don't know. Why did you get me on here? Is that helpful? Does that answer your question?
I think so. I mean, to me, to be honest, it comes back to the do stuff and speak to people.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because if you've got a calling card game that's got a bit of traction, that's brilliant. Thing is, chances are you might find that. Do you know what? I want to write my own stuff, because there's nothing more fun than writing your own stuff because no one could say no to you. Such a feeling of power. Although there's also a joy in sneaking stuff past them.
Is it also do you need the restriction? Do you need the because I'm thinking of musical artists like Prince and Björk and stuff, and to me it feels like once they got the status and the power to come out from under the restrictions of the record label and just do whatever they want, I stopped caring about their stuff as much.
Yeah, I mean, like often I will find that when they come back and say, no, we can't do that, then you find a way to do it better and different. Because just the simple act of iterating on stuff is really, really useful. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be self-indulgent. It's just being able to have an objective eye, or have someone else who can look at stuff and say, this is really self-indulgent. This is just going on. I think the thing to remember is just keep it as brief as possible. There are so many games which have just screeds of dialogue and stuff, and I'm just like, I need to care about the game before you can make me care about the characters, really. So yeah, I as a narrative designer, there's a lot of it that I really hate. I'm set in my ways, and so yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just making sounds now. I just think keep it short, edit, and then edit again. Kill your babies, as they say. Don't actually kill your babies. You will get in trouble.
Good advice. Yeah, I mean, we saw this when I was at Channel 4. People would send in like a 3-hour documentary, and the TV commissioners would say, look, it needs to be under an hour. Mm. They're like, no, but it's impossible. It needs to have every minute of this 3 hours. Yeah. And internally, the word was basically that just means these people don't know how to edit.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately, whether it's a TV show or a game, there's a budget for everything, and people have an attention span. So on that kind of note, just a question related from Sam in terms of the importance of narrative in virtual environments. I mean, just to broaden that out, I mean, does every game, does every virtual environment need narrative?
No. Look, we got on without narrative just fine for about 10 years, really, didn't we? In terms of games, I don't think it's necessary. I think, who's going to stick a narrative on Space Invaders? But
I mean, we didn't have it, but would it have benefited from it if you'd got your hands on Space Invaders and you'd poked fun at the little UFO that flew across the screen every 3 minutes?
I'm unconvinced. I think if the game is good enough, I don't care about the story. I'm terrible for like skip. As a writer, I shouldn't be perhaps, but if the game is good enough, genuinely am not too fussed if it's mechanically sound. However, some things they go really well together, and I will get into them. Where the pace of it is more allows that to flourish, but it's like an arcadey experience. Why? It's just going to get in the way a narrative probably if it's like something quite pure and arcadey. But yeah, I mean, if anything that's got a more considered pace, I think narrative can enhance it, and I think everything is made better with jokes apart from funerals, and even then there are exceptions.
Fair enough. I'm not going to ask you to name a single favourite game, but what are some of the games you've most admired that someone else has done, where you've admired the narrative design?
Oh, well, for me, it's generally the funniest ones. So obviously, Portal 2 is a very high watermark. Actually, that's it. Now, do you remember Garth Marenghi? I'm very much in the realm of I've written more books than I've read. A bit. I really enjoyed, Last of Us 1 and 2. I enjoyed that. I mean, went on a bit.
Yeah, not so many jokes, not so funny.
No. Perhaps could have done with a little levity, No, I mean, the Deus Ex games, I love those, but I think that's probably on a mechanical level. Everything that Arcane does, I love, but again, that's mechanical. I mean, I love the worlds they create, and I enjoy the narratives, but skip. Again, so really, it's it's whatever's made me laugh. I think Portal 2 is just the best at that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's maybe Portal, Tim Schafer stuff I love, and there was one other just came into mind that I've completely forgotten. Oh, Thomas Was Alone. I thought was, again that was a genre that didn't need it, but
I was up against that in the Writers of Great Britain Guild Awards, and I lost out to Mike bloody Biffle. So screw you, Mike. Me and Ree Pratchett, we both lost out to him. So I think she hates him as much as me. I hope so.
It was rather well done, though.
Whatever. Legacy Undercover is artwork. Artwork. It's got a joke about putting an apple up a horse's bum. You can't buy that. I mean, you can on the eShop, but
you can probably get a non-fungible token made out of it these days. But anyway. So we've only got you for 5 more minutes. So if anyone's got any other last questions, drop them in. Just quickly from me, highest and lowest point of being in the games industry.
Lowest point, the Nicktoons snapshot, definitely. As I say, it made me ill. It was incredibly stressful. Hated it. Loved the company I was working at, but that project was just high point. I'll take Lego City Undercover, really, because it was the first thing I ever really did writing on properly, and it was a real blast. However, again, the amount of overtime meant that I was very ill afterwards. So also, it was like, so yeah, that's still the high point. That group of actors, working with them was so much fun. Yeah. Oh shit! No, my game. Oh, I said this word.
Yeah, as long as that's not the name of the game, I think we'll let you off with that one. So.
No. Phantom Islands. Look for it soon, kids. Not soon.
I mean, overtime's an interesting one. That's a whole. That's not even just a live stream. That's a whole PhD or something topic in itself. But just in terms of looking at companies to work for, policy attitude to overtime is obviously one part of that. I mean, how much do you look at things like that? And do I like the boss? Do I think they're ethical? All that kind of stuff. How much do you look at stuff like that when you're thinking about a new company?
I mean, I've been for interviews at other places, and just the vibe I got was just like, no, because they were trying to sell me on the idea. No, overtime is good. It's great. You get to crunch for 7 months and you produce an absolute piece of crap at the end of it. And it's like, going to hard pass. I think it's worth spending a bit of time on Glassdoor, having a look, seeing what people are saying. Yeah. But here's the thing: if it's like your first job in the industry, you haven't really got the choice, and hopefully you're young enough that it won't kill you. But yeah, as soon as you can, if you can work for a good employer, that's nice. Smaller companies generally better. I would say. They might be, passionate, and they might be a little bit, but hopefully they aren't, running you completely ragged. There are exceptions, obviously, but yeah, I would not. Personally, I wouldn't want to be a cog in a machine anymore. I think I'm hoping that this thing I'm making is a runner, and I never have to kowtow to anyone again.
And you can be your own machine.
Yeah. I'm a terrible boss. That is the downside to this. My boss is an a-hole.
So what? Just one final question has come in. Someone asking if there's any good advice you can give if they want to do their own solo project.
As a narrative designer, don't worry about the gameplay, because I assume you probably just look at something like Inkle or just some kind of interactive fiction. If you're just talking in general, make Tetris. For God's sake, if it's your first project, make it really, really simple. Do not. The game I'm working on is feature creep incarnate. Terrible idea, but I have finished a few other remakes of other games in the past, so I feel I'm going to get there. But keep it as simple as possible, because finishing is very important. It's so easy to start things, so hard to finish them. So yeah, just don't worry that it's going to look like hot trash, unless you're an artist, in which case don't worry that it's going to play like hot trash. Just get it finished.
So, that's a bit of advice I've never heard anyone give, is just to remake something, remake Tetris or remake Pac-Man or something like that. Do you stand by that?
Yeah, I think it's like if you can remake it, it shows you, it teaches you all the systems that go into making a game. It gives you a good appreciation for the whole thing, but it also means that you've got a cast iron end goal. Feature creep's not going to happen because you're just making that. So it's not time consuming. However, I think knowing when you've definitely finished and getting appreciation for all the different things that go into making a game, it's actually kind of a useful thing to do. I think people do remakes much less these days. It's not the thing that it used to be, but I certainly found it useful as a way of understanding all the different things that go into making a game.
Sure.
Shush phone. Nothing.
You're too popular. That's your next contract in your milestones.
It's just my thing telling me it's 5 o'clock. Go and see your son and wife. That's what it is. But don't worry, they're right outside. I can hear them, so it's okay. They're not dead.
As long as you remember to set foot outside the room, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Fab. Listen, our time's up. We need to let you. I was going to say go back to work, but go and see your son and wife. Even more importantly, so.
Yeah. It's that work-life balance. It's very important.
Absolutely.
And also, my son is a nightmare. I love him. I love him to bits. However, my wife has had to spend 8 hours with him now, and I'm pretty sure that's against the Geneva Convention. The
buck is being passed. Quite right. Great. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time out this afternoon to speak to us.
My pleasure. I was looking forward to it so much, and I definitely remembered. It's nice to see you as well.
I noticed. And we will definitely catch up once normal physical events resume and all that kind of nonsense. And I'll eagerly await to find out more about your project and whether it's actually bankrupted your family or not.
As long as I can keep getting these side gigs, I think I can coast forever.
Awesome. Great, Graham. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Look forward to hearing more about what you do in the future. Everyone else, that's us for today. Next week, Wednesday, the 31st of March, we're joined by Technical Director Lizzie Atwood. So do tune into that. If you're not already signed up to the newsletter, get on the website, which is www.gamesjobs.live. You'll find all the details of event registrations that you can sign up to and a link to the newsletter so that we can keep you up to date with everything else that's coming along. So with that, thank you much for joining us. Thank you again, Mr. Goring, and we'll see you all another time. Bye.